Hello, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I wish you all a very happy and reflective and refreshing International Women's Day. So today we have an event organized by the Center for Gender Studies and Advocacy of the University of Ghana in collaboration and with support from the UNFPA Ghana. We are privileged to have certain distinguished persons in our midst this morning. And without wasting much time, I will just acknowledge the presence of the Provost of the College of Humanities, University of Ghana. I would also acknowledge the presence of Mr. Niyi Ojo-Lape, Resident Rep of the UNFPA Ghana. There are many other distinguished personalities on our platform right now. We are very privileged to have the Vice Chancellor of the University of Ghana give us her opening remarks at today's event. Unfortunately, she is in another meeting, but she has graciously recorded her remarks and she would like us to share the remarks. So at this juncture, we would listen to the remarks of the Vice Chancellor of the University of Ghana. And then at some point, we would also have remarks by the resident representative of the UNFPA. Thank you. Shall we have Fee's remarks now?
Ladies and gentlemen, I bring you warm greetings from the University of Ghana. The Center for Gender Studies and Advocacy of the University of Ghana, in collaboration with UNFPA, is bringing to you a two-day webinar series on breaking the gender bias in academia, activism, and leadership. Conversations will be held with two of our distinguished female professors on how they have navigated and defied the bias to get to the top of their fields. The Sajensa UNFPA International Women's Day events are in line with the key strategic priority of the University of Ghana on gender and diversity. That is our fourth strategic priority. By this, we aim to create a just and equal teaching, learning, and work environment for all members of the university community. Over the years, we've been working at creating an environment which is free of bias, stereotypes, and discrimination. It may please you to know that the University of Ghana is the first university in the country to develop a sexual harassment policy. Last year, I inaugurated a new anti-sexual harassment committee to address issues of sexual harassment and misconduct in the university. I've charged the committee to take relevant steps to prevent sexual harassment and abuse in the university, respond promptly and effectively to reports of sexual harassment and abuse within the community. Because the University of Ghana is determined to break every gender bias within its community and in a sustainable manner, we shall not rest on our oars just because we now have an all-female set of principal office holders. We will continue to work at ensuring that this historic feat trickles down to inspire, guide, and create more opportunities for females within the university community. I've personally been interested in mentoring female faculty, administrators, staff, and students, having chaired the mentoring subcommittee of Sajensa sometime in the past. In the next 2 days, as we celebrate two of our illustrious female academics and hold conversations with them on their activism, leadership, and pathways to flourishing in their fields of work, it is hoped that some latent intellectual and leadership potentials in you may be ignited, and many of you will be inspired to have bigger career aspirations. I also hope that you will feel empowered to rise above professional challenges at your respective workplaces. I hope that the stories of Professors Akosua Adomako Ampofo and Esther Dawson will move you out of your comfort zone so you can see possibilities and build resilience to make great impacts in your society. I would like to end by thanking all of you for attending this event. Our profound thanks also goes to the UNFPA for supporting the Center for Gender Studies and Advocacy to put this two-day event together. I'm confident that this is just the beginning of many more collaborations towards the promotion of gender equality in this university and the entire nation. I wish you all a reflective and invigorating International Women's Day celebration. Let's break the bias. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring you warm greetings from the University of.
Thank you very much, Professor Nanaba Ampofo. We would now go straight to invite our moderator, Ms. Mamiya Mensah-Bonsu, who is a lecturer at the Faculty of Law, University of Ghana. She's going to take us through the conversation which we would have with Professor Akosua Adomako Ampofo. When she's done, we would have a collaborating partner, resident rep of the UNFPA, to give some remarks. Because of certain technical issues, we are unable to put him on right now, but we would resolve it as soon as the conversation is done, and then we would get to hear his remarks duly. So I invite you now, Mamiya, to take over. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Atobra. Good afternoon, everyone, and good afternoon, Prof. It's an honor to be creating this conversation. As I'm sure you can imagine, for such a distinguished career, your profile is unbelievably long, so we will read only a little bit and cut severely in order to hear from her, from her herself. So Professor Adomako Ampofo is a professor of African and Gender Studies at the Institute of African Studies, University of Ghana. In 2005, she became the foundation director of the University of Ghana's Center for Gender Studies and Advocacy. And from 2010 to 2015, she was the director of the Institute of African Studies. Professor Adomako Ampofo is president of the African Studies Association of Africa, an honorary professor at the Center of African Studies at the University of Birmingham, and a fellow of the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences. She is editor-in-chief, Contemporary Journal of African Studies, and co-editor, Critical Investigations into Humanitarianism in Africa blog. Professor Adomako Ampofo's work has been variously recognized. She has been a junior Fulbright Scholar, a New Century Fulbright Scholar, and a senior Fulbright Scholar in residence, and has been a fellow at the Rockefeller Foundation's Bellagio Center. In 2010, she was awarded the Feminist Activism Award by Sociologists for Women and Society, SWS. In 2014, she was a Mellon Fellow at the Center for African Studies at the University of Cape Town. In 2015, she was the African Studies Association of America's African Studies Review Distinguished Lecturer. And in 2019, she delivered the Audrey Richards Distinguished Public Lecture at the Center for African Studies at the University of Cambridge. Wow. Prof. Adomako Ampofo, what a profile. And this is the abbreviated version. So to start with, I'd like to ask, this is what we say about you, but how would you describe yourself?
Thank you very much, Mamiya. Thank you for sharing that profile. You talked about its length. It's also a function of age. As you age, your profile gets longer. And thank you very much to Dr. Atobra and to the Center for inviting me to do this. So I feel honored, I feel privileged. There's a homecoming sense about it. To your question about how I would describe myself, how I see myself, I think that there are many ingredients that factor into, who one is and how one constructs one's identity. And certainly this also changes over the life course, I believe. But there are certainly some core areas of my being. I'm a woman. I identify as a woman. That's very important to me. I also identify as a feminist. I am a Christian. And so these are some of the core areas. And I'm an African. So, you know, if we intersect all of these, they impact on the kinds of things that burn in my heart. And I think at the core of that, you know, intersecting all of those for me are issues of social justice. And the fact that, as people have said in many other contexts, if you cannot live in this world as a human being alone and continue to retain your humanity. You have to care about what happens to other people. You have to recognize that what happens to other people affects you. And, you know, to use a Christian analogy, or to pick something from the Bible, if we believe that we are made in the image of God, right? If we are all made in the image of God, then I cannot be unaffected by what happens to other people. However different they are from me, I should care. And I think that's really at the core of who I am and who I would like to be. I often fall short, but at least this is my goal, to, you know, to be moved by what happens to others, to recognize the humanity in them in as much as I want the humanity in myself to be recognized. So, you know, when it comes to issues of gender, it's about how women are treated. If I think of myself as an African, it's how Africans are treated, you know, and how we treat each other.
Okay, thank you.
That's the short answer.
You've covered the second question, which was about your core values. So it's a nice answer to cover two questions. And so I was hoping that at this point you could take us through a few pivotal moments in your career trajectory, and what lessons you think early and aspiring scholars can learn from these moments.
Again, when you talk to older people, you always risk getting long answers because we have a longer experience to refer to.
Okay,
so,
two pivotal moments.
Shrinking pivotal moments becomes difficult, but I think that, you know, I studied architecture and then development planning, and I ended up in the social sciences. So I think that one of the pivotal moments for me was coming to do my national service, and this was after I had done my master's with Professor George Bene at the geography department at the University of Ghana. And he was working on a project on women and access to land. And because of my background, even though I was interested in gender issues, or women's issues, I should say, I wasn't as familiar with a lot of the literature, you know, from my field in architecture and in development planning. So that was pivotal for me. And then he introduced me, I wasn't sure where I was going to go with my career. So he introduced me to now Professor Emerita Techuamenu, who was at the Institute of African Studies. And he felt that this was somebody that I would be interested in working with, and asked me to, you know, consider remaining in the academy. I had never thought of myself as an academic. So that's, you know, that was a pivotal moment. And then I ended up becoming a research fellow at the Institute and worked with Prof. Menu and so on. And other pivotal moments, I would say, are a collection of my interactions in various academic and civil society spaces. So I wouldn't single any one of them out, but having worked with colleagues in the Network for Women's Rights in Ghana, the Domestic Violence Coalition, the African Studies Association, both in the US and the one we formed on the continent, and particularly the women's spaces in there. So for example, the Women's Caucus of the African Studies Association has been very instrumental in my own career trajectory, because I met women who were maybe not much older than me, but senior to me, because I came to a PhD later than they did. So they were initially more of older sisters in, you know, in my intellectual development. And, you know, that has been extremely formative for me. And then the spaces together with other women colleagues on the University of Ghana campus have been really spaces that have helped me in the evolution, of my career as an academic, but also my career as an activist, in my thinking and introducing me to various different literatures and movements and so on.
And are there any lessons for early and aspiring academics from these?
I would say one major lesson for me has been the importance of collaboration, working together, not working together in the sense of not in two ways. One, not doing your intellectual work in a silo. So, other people commenting and critiquing on your work, asking them for literature, what reference, I'm working on this, what literature would you recommend that I also refer to? So there's that, but also not working in isolation in terms of, sharing the space. It becomes very easy for us as we progress in our careers to occupy the stage, Professor so and so, but to recognize that that is a shared space, should be a shared space, and to extend the hand of fellowship to others, both who are your seniors, your peers, and those who may be, lower in their career, because there's something always to be learned from somebody else, and we cannot do it alone. We shouldn't do it alone. You don't survive in the academy if you try to do it on your own. You might become a very seasoned academic, and I say might because I don't think people who work alone have the richness in their theorizing as they should. But it's also very lonely, can be very lonely, and especially if you're a woman, if you are not collaborating with others, there are gender challenges that you need other people in the space to be with you. So I know that there are some who think they have made it on their own. I think it's short-sighted not to recognize that the playing field has been created by many other people who have gone before us. So those would be, two important lessons. I mean, there are several also, you must create time for yourself, time to rest, time to be kind to yourself, time to, to stop and breathe and to inhale, because especially now post-COVID, I would say that, that the world has taken a turn. Yeah. And if we don't stop to inhale and exhale and to think of ourselves, there won't be much of us to share with others. And, we're not here just to take in the oxygen. We're also here to support other people.
Thank you. So this is amazing. Take time to inhale. That's a really big lesson there. So Prof, I want to move into your leadership because you are to inspire intellectual activism and leadership. So you've held a number of leadership positions, including Director of Institute of African Studies. Did you plan to take up these positions when you first began your career, or was it just organically part of your career growth?
Yeah, I like that question because it's both. When I joined the academy, I was very naive. I thought that the academy was this very open, democratic, intellectual space where we all have academic freedom to do what we want to do intellectually. And sadly, I came to learn that the academy, like any other human institution or bureaucracy, is not. I came to realize how very male-centric it also is, partly a function of the fact that there are so many men in it. And so along the way, I realized that if I wanted to, make a difference or do social justice work, I would also have to get into spaces where I could have a voice. So initially, it wasn't so much about leadership, but about sitting at the table and having an opportunity to also, share my thoughts and my point of view. And then along the way, I thought, well, I can also be in leadership. I'm just as good as many of the other people who are out there. So then consciously thinking about how I could get into those leadership positions. And one that I will talk about that you didn't mention, myself and Professor Sechi Dawson, who is going to be the speaker tomorrow, we worked to get onto the council of the University of Ghana, because as the board of the university, we felt that that was an important space where we could make a difference. And so and I'm going to talk about myself here, I had to be very strategic about getting onto that position, because it's an elected position and you've got to have the votes of both the men and the women. You've got to have people in the social sciences who know you, people in the applied and physical sciences who may not know you as well. So yes, that was a very strategic choice. And I did get elected twice onto the council. Sorry, in which year? This was in 2000 and the early 2000s, somewhere there. So yeah, and Esther and myself, we campaigned to get onto this, and we had a lot of support also from women, fellows of Walter Hall, and so on. So that was, a strategic and a very deliberate decision. Later on, I was planning to apply for one of the deanships, and subsequently I did apply for one of the another deanship, but I wasn't successful. That application wasn't successful in the sense that I didn't become the dean, but with hindsight, I think that it was successful because God had the directorship of the Institute of African Studies in store for me. But to position yourself, to get your CV together, to apply for these positions, who will be your referee, putting together your vision statement is a lot of work. And sad to say, some of the applications I see these days are a little bit more sloppy. But I think that in the early 2000s, many of the applications that I was privileged to see when I was on council, were really tight. And you saw people who had put in a lot of work, to get appointed into these positions. And that's what I think a lot of women still do, because we know that the cards are stacked against us. You have to work a little bit harder to be taken seriously and to be appointed. And now I'm rambling, so sorry. Yes,
I was enjoying it.
Both.
Stop you, because it's a nice segue to my next question about the usefulness of being a female intellectual leader, as opposed to, say, remaining quietly in your corner and publishing and getting ahead in your career. Did this detract from your? I mean, is it a distraction, or is it useful to your life as an academic as well, taking up leadership positions?
Personally, I think that any space that one occupies, there should be service. You must progress in your chosen career. You must do well. You should aim for the highest position that you can in the academy, that is becoming a full professor. But you also need to provide service to that community, because who should make the place comfortable for you to enjoy, right? So we should all serve on committees, we should all do editorial work, we should all take our students off to conferences and so on. Because, I mean, if we don't do that, the space will not be comfortable for us either. I don't think there are very few academics I know who have done it on their own. Not everyone necessarily acknowledges this, but when I look at the ones that I really, really admire, they have given service in one way or the other. They have provided their intellectual, their creative skills to the environment in which, that houses them, that has offered them a job. So, whether you are a man or you're a woman, I think that this is a responsibility. It also serves you well, and especially for women, because again, this is a male-centric space. If we don't go in there and do the work to change the space, it's not going to change. So we need men as allies, Some of them are brothers, some may even call themselves feminists, but we ourselves, have to go in there and get our hands dirty, so to speak, and do the work. I think it is really important. I don't think any of us who have succeeded in our careers, I mean, women academics, will have made it without the hard work of those who went before us, even though perhaps these days some take it for granted. If others had not struggled, we would not have made it. And I remember when our Vice Chancellor, Prof. Akosua Ampofo, gave her induction speech, she talked about the women who had gone before her. She was not the first woman to apply to be Vice Chancellor. Others didn't make it, but she acknowledged the fact that their journey made it possible for her to be there. And I think this is an important lesson. We journey not necessarily for our own success. You journey to pave the way for others to see what can be done, and to open doors that you yourself might not enter the room ever. But you open a door, you make a pathway to a space that other people can occupy, because same has been done for you. So I think the service component is extremely important.
Thank you. I remember a few people saying, when you're a woman and you get to a place, you're not there for yourself. You are there for countless other women who are behind you. So this is a good reminder of this. So Prof, is leadership a comfortable space for you, or did it push you out of your comfort zone in any way, and how? Because I think there's a lot of, maybe there are stereotypes, but I think there's some truth in saying that a lot of women shy away from leadership spaces. So is that a comfortable space, and how do we get over these uncomfortable spots that leadership places in women in?
If you want to do leadership as service and you want to bring about change, it's not going to be a comfortable spot. So anybody who's looking for comfort should not be looking for leadership. I think some people get into leadership positions, they actually don't do anything, and maybe they are comfortable enjoying the perks of the job, the material perks. But if you really want to make a difference, it's not going to be comfortable, because you are going to step on some toes, you're going to be critical, you are going to make mistakes, and people will either call you out for the mistakes you've made or criticize you in the background. Some may not even come and ask what happened. So definitely it's not going to be a comfortable space. But I think it's rewarding when you see, quote unquote, the fruits of your labor. When you see your students, your younger colleagues, not only taking up things that you have done, but extending, and in many cases doing better than you did, occupying bigger stages. People may not know that you have invested in somebody's life who is greater than you, but you have the satisfaction of knowing that I planted seeds, in Asimesi's life or in so-and-so's life. And I think the rewards of that far outweigh, the discomfort. And I should say that as a woman, you are going to be criticized more than men. I have been told before that I was shrieking, I was shrill, and I'm like, but he just said the same thing 5 minutes ago. Why is it that when I say it, it sounds, and sometimes you have to shout, because the guy says it once and people have heard him. Because when you were speaking, they were not listening to you. They didn't hear what you said. So you've got to say it again. And by the third time you're saying it, your voice is no longer low. You've raised the decibel level, and it's like, Akosua is shouting and Madam Gender and so on. It's like, yes, but you guys were not listening to me. And especially after several years, you put the diplomacy and protocol aside sometimes, and it's like, I'm just putting this on the table. I am frustrated and fed up that I've been saying the same thing for the last how many years, and you guys are not hearing. And you'll make some enemies if you are doing social justice work, because you are tinkering with a system that people are comfortable with and they do not want to change. If you're going to call people out for sexual harassment issues, they will not be your friends. If you are going to call them out for issues of corruption, they will not be your friends. If you want to say a particular person should not be promoted, they will not be your friends, but I mean, it has to be done, and you will sleep well at night because you know that you did the right thing. And let me also say, when people know who you are, they will not even bring certain temptations your way because they know this one, if I take it to Akosua or to Mameya, she's going to reject it. So let me not even bother with her. And your children, your students, your younger colleagues see that you can be a person of conviction and stay alive. I say a lot of the time, the things that we fear actually do not happen. You'll go to a meeting and somebody will say, hey, Akosua, this one, don't say it to trouble. And it's like, which trouble? Especially when you're a tenured professor, unless you commit some very blatant offense, you've got your job. Why would you be afraid to say the right thing? And you get the satisfaction of seeing that those that you work with are learning from you, and that there are people also to hold your hands when you are struggling and you are fatigued and you are, you feel, as for today, I cannot do this. And it's like, we are there with you, keep going.
Thank you very much. This I think at this point is a good time to break for our video so we can inhale and reflect on your words. So, Dr. Tobra.
Yes, Mr.
Activism is a challenge on many fronts.
The Federation of Gold Coast Women in the early 50s had been agitating about a law that would protect women.
All our laws are neutrally crafted, but doesn't protect women. I wrote an article on, I think it was on polygamy. And do you know what my own dad said to me? I shouldn't have written the article.
Participatory democratic systems with no women in there. That is democracy for the men, as usual.
No human being should be expected to countenance, absorb, or tolerate violence.
I wrote this article recounting my story of sexual abuse as a 7-year-old. People have said how brave I was to have talked about it, but it took me 67 years. 67 years.
Whatever we do, we need to organize in traditional ways and also in new ways.
When women unite, we can build and we can pull down.
Activism.
Thank you. Professor Adomako Ampofo, why when women speak? I love that. I love that the topic, the name, the title, by the way. But why when women speak?
And let me say, we really struggled with that title as a team. There were so many titles that came onto the table, and we had the technical people and the creative people and the researchers, with different views. And then some title, you'll find it and we go in the internet, it's like, oh, somebody already has a film with that title. Anyway, why when women speak? so this is a collaborative project in terms of the genesis of it. Dr. Kate Skinner, who's a reader or an associate professor, as we would say, at the University of Ghana. She's at the University of Birmingham, and she's an historian. And then myself, a sociologist, social scientist. This was our baby. We were both interested in cataloging the narrative, the trajectory, the stories of women's contributions to the Ghanaian story, if you like. So, as my younger daughter would always say, you jump from Yasantua to some of the women in the early CPP days to Beijing, and then that's it. It's like in between, nobody did anything. So, you know, sorry?
Apart from Theodosia Oku comes up somewhere.
Theodosia Oku, maybe Mabel Dankwa, Susanna Hassan, if at all. You know, we don't seem to know what women in our more recent history have done. So one of the goals was, one, to show the work that they have been doing, to also highlight some of them as individuals, and to make it obvious that the work hasn't ended. There's often a feeling, I think, among younger women that older women have done their bit and gone. These are women who came of age in the 60s and 70s, and all of them are still active today. In their 70s, some in their 80s, they are still active today. And they have made major contributions, not only to the feminist struggle, to women's lives, but to the nation as well. Not all of the issues that they were active and are active around are necessarily gendered issues or women's issues. We also wanted to make it evident that, you know, the gender activism or the feminist work is not foreign. We are often accused that you've imported something from the West and so on. And here are women who, without any instigation, if you like, from the global North, were focusing on issues that were important for women's lives in Ghana and for the lives of their sons and husbands and cousins and brothers and so on. So, you know, this was extremely important for us, and also to show the importance of collaboration. There is a way in which I think today there can be a lot of individualism. I'm at a conference currently, and one of the speakers this morning was Angela Davis, and she was talking about the importance of collaborative work, which I mentioned earlier, of international work, and of intersectionality. And I think the women, that the 16 women that we capture, that we interview, or that we decided to interview, but that I interviewed, as well as others whose archival footage is in there, show us the importance of intersectional work, that you cannot look just at women's issues. You look at poverty, you look at you know, people being abused by ethnic issues, by disability, by sexuality. You also are not going to look only at the issues in your small country. Right now, you know, Russia is at war with Ukraine. We cannot close our eyes and say it doesn't affect us. So the importance of the work that these women did and continue to do, we thought was very important to showcase. And many of these have been are my older sisters who I have worked with. So I know a lot of the work that they have done, but even I was impressed as I was doing the interviews with the depth of the work that they have done and with their commitment to various kinds of struggle, and, you know, counting the cost, and they are still alive, you know, and working today.
So what inspired or inspires activism in you?
I think it's back to, I know it's back to the question you asked me at the beginning, which is about a concern for social justice. I'm sure if we all look back into our childhood, that sense of unfairness when you were punished for something that you didn't do, or a sibling was rewarded and you felt that you had been left out, or a schoolmate was punished unfairly. You know, it's not fair is really something that children, you know, often say. As you get older and more experienced, maybe a little cynical and jaded, you are like, well, actually the world is not a fair place, which is true. And, you know, every battle is not my battle, so let me just leave it. But for people who remain activists, because I think children are activists, people who remain activists, that is not fair, you know, continues to trouble you. And you realize that you want to speak to it there, you know, you want to do something about it where you can. And of course, you are limited by, you know, time and energy and skills and so on. So you focus on the areas that, you know, either you burn most strongly in your heart, or that you have the competencies for, or that are immediate in your environment. It might be about climate. It might be about, you know, disabled people. It might be about children on the street. It might be domestic violence, you know, whatever it is, it troubles you. And you find that not doing anything or doing nothing is not an option. And I would like to add that activism for me and for, I think, most of at least the women, let me say in this film, let me limit myself to that, is not just going onto the streets with a placard. We've done some of that, you know, marches, writing petitions, going to meet people in authority and so on, that, you know, maybe going on air. These are the visible aspects that one sees, for which you may receive a lot of praise and acknowledgement or abuse. But there's also the work that is done in the background, you know, the people who are doing the research. Some of us in our teaching see this as an activist endeavor, because you want to ginger your students into thinking about social change. So that's the long answer. The short answer is that issues that are troublesome in our world trouble you, and you feel pushed to, you know, to do something about it.
I mean, I'd love to go on about this, but I know that our time is very limited, so I'll move on. So, Prof, in my, and I'm a very early career academic, but even I have noticed that, for example, when you're a female, you are a strict lecturer because you just happen to be exigent. You just want excellence from your students. You demand punctuality. You want to make sure people respect your work and your opinion. But if it's a man, he's just very principled. And this is a bias that I have come, you know, and you'll find that I think there's a lot of, and I remember being a student myself and thinking, hey, this female lecturer is hard, but this male lecturer, he's just very, you know, very correct in his things. Can you highlight areas where you had bias against female scholars? And we are talking International Women's Day about breaking the bias, and where maybe a couple of areas where bias exists against female scholars or activists, and how do we overcome this? But how do we break those biases?
Yeah, thank you, Mamia. I think you've alluded to a very important one in that there's a different standard to measure your seriousness or your rigor as an academic or as a leader. So for a woman, there's a certain expectation that you should be softer, you should be motherly, and it even finds expression in people calling you ma and mommy, you know, and a student walks into your office, good afternoon, ma. And I'm like, you know, if you came into the office of a dean or director who was a man, would you say good afternoon there? You wouldn't, you know. So consciously or unconsciously, there's this expectation that, excuse me, there'll be a certain greater softness, vulnerability, and tenderness. And people, you know, for good or ill, expect that you should operate that way. And yes, tenderness and compassion are very good qualities, but where somebody has missed the mark and needs to be corrected, you need you need to deal with those issues. Of course, you should do it kindly and sometimes gently if that is possible. If you're dealing with a repeat offender, I don't think you do it gently. So there's that bias, as you alluded to. And because people are looking with different lenses at you, even though your behavior may be very same to the male colleague, because their expectations are different, they are seeing you differently and consider you to be harder, more exacting, and so on. So that's one bias. I think sometimes because we don't want to be criticized for doing the wrong thing, we also may sometimes as women be a little bit more unbending, because you don't want to have that situation where anyone accuses you of compromising. Another bias, I think, again, is in this expectation that the woman will be less able to the task or less available. So even today, there are women who experience discrimination because she's going to get married, she's going to have kids, and it's like, well, we could all decide to stop having children. So far, we have not yet come up with a new way of, regenerating the human race. So we are needed for that task. So why does it become like you've done something wrong because you are going to have a partner and you're going to have children? And that, bias is built in there. And instead of finding ways for our society to manage the reproductive work, children, bearing of children, childcare, it becomes women being blamed. Even though people may not think of it consciously, that's often what they are doing. So that, again, is another bias. And the fact that a lot of people still think that women are, I hear this all the time, men are more logical and women are more emotional. And I say there are so many occasions, just look at men in operation and we'll know that they are very emotional, whether it's, some sports event, whether it is parliamentarians fighting over issues they cannot agree on. I mean, that's emotion right there. So, this idea that women are more emotional, maybe because they are more open to crying, does not mean that they are less logical. And actually, I think, and I'm sure those who have done the research will be able to support this, that because women from early childhood work in collaboration, and because we are socialized to work together, to do teamwork, I think that we actually bring more careful logic to the table because of the experiences that we've had. So we have a better sense of the larger ecosystem and how doing this will affect this person and not doing this will affect this person, because we have worked that way in those situations. So those are some of the biases that work against women. Was there a second part to the question that I've missed?
No, I think you've covered it so broadly that everybody will get something to take away from this. In the last 12 minutes of our conversation, I'd like to look at your personal life and the most cliched expression of all time, work-life balance, or some say work-life imbalance, because perhaps it doesn't exist. What tips do you have for managing your time? As a female academic with all these other social roles, and what kind of things do you do to manage time, and how do we learn from these?
Not that I am the best manager of my time. Maybe I take on too many things, because I actually think I'm probably quite efficient, but have a longer to-do list than I should have. So one of the things that we should learn to do early is to say no, because you can't do everything. In fact, first, let me say that it is not possible to have everything. So anybody who says that as a woman you can have it all is not telling the truth. I remember years ago watching a senior woman from, I think it was the prison services, who was being interviewed or was on a panel, and she was talking about her work and how she goes home and she's mother and she's wife, and she even goes home to in the middle of the day to prepare food for her husband. And there was another woman on the panel, and I could see from her face that she was saying, "You, this woman, you are lying. It is not possible to do all of this." And we should not create the impression that it is possible to do all of that. And it's okay. You can't. You make choices. You are either a career person, and men also make choices, or you are a stay-at-home mother, wife, auntie, and doing other kinds of work, but you will not be able to do both of those to 100% capacity. So I think we should recognize that. But going back to saying no, and this is about figuring out what is best for you as a human being, what's best for you professionally, and what's best for the various communities you inhabit, and realizing that there are some things that you cannot do at this point in time. There are also other things that somebody could do as well as you or better, and you can pass it on. Sometimes we don't do it because we don't want that person to shine, right? But sometimes we don't do it because we feel obligated to. So learning to say no is important. Having a community of people to support you. So, my colleagues, especially my women colleagues in the academy, I have a group of sisters that I call my girlfriends in God. I can share my issues with them to pray about. These are very safe spaces where, people care about you as an individual. They care about your profession. They care about your well-being. I can go to them. They can correct me and say, Akosua, ask for this one. Please leave it be. Or this one is actually not that deep. I think you are taking it too personally. Let it be. And then you calm down. I have been privileged, to have a very supportive, both extended and quote unquote nuclear family. So, my husband, I have 2 biological daughters. I believe I have a lot of other children that I didn't give birth to physically, but that I can call on and say, please, can you do this for me? Some of my students are just amazing. At short notice, I call on them to support me and, stuff that I'm doing. I need some reference. The student is not even working on that topic, and I need some reference, and I call on them and they assist me. So that support network is really, really very important to keep sane, and to have moments of, I think I alluded to this earlier, of exhaling, of chilling. I think chilling is very important, and it doesn't have to be any big deal. For me, whenever I travel, I find time for myself. I'm either watching a movie. When I was younger, I would do a lot of sightseeing, museums, and so on. These days, I'm a bit tired. So I will just watch a movie or sleep. I love scented candles. I travel with them these days. It makes them smell nice. Things that make your senses feel good. I like food. So, I treat myself to interesting meals when I can. I used to do a lot more dancing than I do these days. But, those kinds of things that make you enjoy the world that God has created for us to enjoy, it's important. And doing things with friends. One thing that I say to younger women, that I say to my daughters all the time, is maintain your female friendships. They will carry you throughout your life. And I'm very heartwarmed when I see my daughters, the friendships they had from secondary school and from university that are still so meaningful for them, because we tend to often throw a lot of our time into our professional relationships. If you are in a relationship with a romantic or intimate partner, you throw a lot of yourself and your energy into those. But your friends, especially your female friends as a woman, are very important. They are places where you can feel safe, where you know that you will not be judged, you will be cared for. And I've been doing some work on masculinities. And a number of the young men that I've spoken to across the continent and in the diaspora are that they don't use the word envy, but it's like those spaces that you women have. We don't have those spaces, and we really need to cultivate them and cherish them.
Thank you for that, because I think that we teach our women differently, especially when you get married. they tell you to keep your things to yourself and have fewer friends, and they generally make you feel quite isolated. And so I think this is a really key thing that I will take away from this about maintaining your female friendships, your sisters. You mentioned this, a bit, but I think that I've seen a lot of comments, and I think that people would appreciate a minute or two on this about women's guilt. That there's so much guilt that we feel about not being able to do everything. You have so many things to so many people. Have you felt this, and how does one deal with this guilt? Being a mom, a wife, a single parent, whatever. How do we deal with the guilt of not being everything for everyone all the time?
It's also a personality issue. Some people are better able to deal with what is thrown at them. Yes, I used to deal with issues of guilt as a young mother. Travel, you've left your children behind, but you haven't left them behind. They are with their father, who is equally competent and brought them into this world, and my in-laws and so on. You are at work, you are coming home late. When you come home, the first thing you do is open your computer. My daughters used to call my laptop my third born. I have two biological daughters. The laptop was my third born. And, sometimes you feel guilty, and sometimes I did feel guilty, and sometimes I knew that I was doing too much carrying of work along with me. But as I said, especially with children, I'm not the only parent. And I remember once on some trip or the other, I'm calling home, checking on things, and my older daughter, I can't remember how old she was, I don't know, probably 9 or 10 or something. Those days, chill was not a word in the vocabulary, but basically she was saying that, Mommy, you need to chill. Things may not be being done the way you want them to be done, right? But they are getting done. The fact that we didn't bath at this time and do our homework at this time and eat this food at this time, really, what's the big deal? It gets done. And if on one occasion some homework was not done, so be it. So I think we need to, yes, live up to our responsibilities. I'm not saying when there are things that we should do, we have not done, we should feel guilty so that we do better the next time. But we also need to put down that burden of having to be perfect, and maybe there's some egoism in there that, I look at me, Charlie, my children have made it and they've gone, it's also the way we live vicariously through others. If your partner is successful, your children are successful, if your parents are great, you also take some personal pride in it. And I think that ego aspect, if we can put some of that away, we will also be able to put some of the guilt away, because people also make choices, and we are responsible for passing things on, but we are not responsible for the choices that people make. As adults, your children become adults, they make choices, they will make some wrong choices, as we also did. So I don't know a formula for putting the guilt aside, except to, keep doing the best we can, looking at the time and the list and recognizing that this one I cannot do, being willing to delegate to others, and not, some of us always want to have a perfect job done, and we think unless we are micromanaging it, it will not get, somebody can, if the person doesn't learn, they will not ever take on that responsibility. Let me just do a small story, very brief one. When the girls were younger, my daughters were younger, we had said that we used to have house help, but we felt that we shouldn't wait till they are too old to dispense with house help, so they should learn to do things themselves. So I even have a photograph where the two of them are standing. The younger one is standing on a stool so that she can reach the sink and wash the dishes. And sometimes those dishes were not properly washed, but I had to try very hard not to comment. And later on, when they were not around, if there was a dish not properly washed, I'll wash it again. Because otherwise you discourage people and they do not learn to do things properly. So delegation is I think, an important aspect of letting go of our guilt and forgiving ourselves. Sometimes we are good at forgiving others and we don't forgive ourselves. And it's like, okay, you screwed up, you do a better job tomorrow, so long as you don't make it a habit. We are all learning. Till the day we die, we will make mistakes and we will have to pick up and apologize to people that we have hurt or wronged. And then we keep going. And there's a lot of freedom in recognizing that I did wrong, but in going to somebody if the opportunity exists and say to them, you know what, I'm sorry, I will do better next time.
Thank you so much, Prof. I know that your time is up, but before you run away back to your conference, what one thing would you tell early career academics, so young women in academia like me, or aspiring to have an academic career? What one lesson would you pass on to us?
Collaboration, I will say, is, collaboration is extremely important. You can't limit me to one, so collaboration is important. Work together with others, recognize others, acknowledge others. I look at students. One of the first things I look at in my students' work is their list of references to see who have they cited, because those are our ancestors. So if you're working on a topic on feminist work in Ghana and you've not cited certain names, then you are not familiar with your ancestors or ancestresses, or you are not acknowledging them. So work with others, acknowledge others, and give forward. People have helped all of us along. So what opportunities can you create for those who are walking beside you or who are behind you to pull them along? Include them in your research grants. Take them to your conferences with you where possible. Expose them to opportunities that you had, or maybe you didn't have, but you have now, that you can share with others. So those I would say are extremely important.
Thank you so much, Professor Adomako Ampofo. It's been an amazing time with you. I have a whole sheet of lessons that I have picked from this conversation, and I'm looking from the comments in the chat box. I see so many people also learning. So thank you for sharing your life with us in an hour. And I wish you the very best. I know that there's so much more waiting for Emerita to come on. So all the best and safe trip back home, Prof.
Thank you very much, Mami. I enjoyed having this conversation with you, and thank you very much, Dr. Atubra. Dr. Atubra, I was debating whether I should say this, but Dr. Atubra used to be my student. She's now my colleague, and it is very heartwarming when people that you have worked with in your lifetime have, taking things that you have worked on alone with others and with them, and they are taking it to higher levels. So that's one of the best forms of appreciation that one can have. And Dr. Atubra, if I may, any of the comments that will be useful lessons for me, if you can gather them and let me have them so that I can also learn from the kinds of questions and comments people have put in the chat. Thank you so much for this opportunity. It's been a pleasure, and definitely it's been an honor. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for tuning in. We still have a few more things before we end this webinar. I just want to highlight some of the key things that Professor Adomako Ampofo mentioned, and I'm sure you all had collaborating, don't work in a silo, engage other academics, get reviews, get references for literature, share the space. That she thinks that if we work alone, we're not as enriched in our work, in our writing as we are if we work with others. And she pointed out also that if leadership is meant for service, then leadership will not be comfortable. So we should prepare ourselves as young academics for the discomfort of a space that doesn't openly welcome us, but where we are going as young leaders. And I will end with a statement she says, you can be a person of conviction and stay alive. and live and thrive. And I thought that that was an amazing session to end with. So thank you for tuning in. I will hand over now to Dr. Atobra. Thank you for inviting me to moderate the session. It was a privilege, a great honor to work with somebody I admire so much. So thank you very much for this invitation, Dr. Atobra.
Thank you very much, Mami. You'll be so amazing. Thank you. You've moderated really well. And thank you very much, Prof. Even if you hadn't said it, I was going to say that you are my mentor and you are a mother to me and many of us. Some have dropped some of these in the chats, and we really appreciate you. This has been another moment of learning. And in addition to what Mami has said, one of the things I have picked is there are so many ways we can do activism. It's not just with holding placards, but even in our lecture halls, behind our PCs, on our desks, and everywhere and anywhere we can do activism. And that is so empowering. And there are many other things Prof has said which have really inspired activism and leadership in me. I think this has been a very great time. We are privileged to have the resident rep, Mr. Niyi Ojulape, who has graciously, through his institution, UNFPA, partnered, collaborated, and sponsored us for this webinar. And so I would call on Mr. Niyi Ojulape to give us some remarks.
Thank you very much, Madam, and I'm very, very grateful for this opportunity to speak in this very, very important occasion. I'm really, really very grateful, and listening to Prof. Based on what we have just said and the interaction we just had, I'm really, really very enthused, and I'm very, very happy and privileged to be part of this. So I want to thank you very much for the opportunity for this partnership, and representing the United Nations Population Fund, I'm delighted to be part of this very important day. UNFPA has in the past collaborated with this great academic institution, and we have collaborated in different ways with the Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research, ISA, and also with the Institute of African Studies. And in the case of the Institute of African Studies, we have in particular in the past worked to support the Institute to mount and run courses on gender and family studies. We have also collaborated in different ways with RIPS. Actually, in the course of this year, RIPS is 50 years old, and we are partnering for a year-long celebration of that partnership. So the collaboration that we've had with this great institution has resulted in building the knowledge and skills of students, both at the undergraduate and postgraduate levels. And as a representative of UNFPA, I feel very, very highly honored to be part of this entire panel. If you see the flyer that announces this particular event, you see, it's full of women. And I've been blessed and personally honored to be the only male on that flyer. And it reminds me, we used to have an executive director in UNFPA, Professor Akosua Adomako, who is actually my mentor. And when we talk about these things, given the profile of UNFPA, he sits amongst women to discuss the issues of women. And at some point, he was actually described by the Secretary General as Secretary General of the United Nations as an honorary woman, because he's part of that. And I've also seen myself over time occupy that particular space and being in the midst of women. And so, like the Bible says, really, I regard myself blessed among women. So that's as an individual, and as a representative of UNFPA, I'm really, really happy to be part of. We are here today, you see, to see the birth of a very important partnership in the area of gender equality and women and girls empowerment. because of our work as a UN agency in this particular area, we recognize it as very important that we should positively respond to the call made by Sijensa, especially for what we in UNFPA, what we call the 3 zeros. What we stand for, first is that we want to achieve what we call 3 zeros. The first zero is to achieve 0 in terms of preventable maternal deaths. We want to achieve 0 in that. We're also looking at a society whereby we achieve 0 in unmet need for family planning. And the third one, which is not the least, is to achieve a 0 in every incidence of sexual and gender-based violence. So, well, I mean, all of these we believe will get us in that direction. And we believe that this partnership with the Institute will provide the opportunity for accomplished women to showcase their journey, to help us encourage the up-and-coming young women and girls so that they know how to chart their paths going forward. So it also offers the university an opportunity to showcase the achievements of women in leadership. I've been frustrated in the past because I think about 2 or 3 years ago, in the midst of the international celebrating the International Women's Day, we organized an event, and there was this particular one that I was very, very enthused and excited about. That yes, I'm going to get women to share their experiences. So it was a meeting for achievers, executive people, leaders in the corporate sector. So we invited them to say they should share their experiences, because the background of it is that women are disadvantaged generally, physiologically, culturally, socially. We all know that. And when you have X number of women and men with the same skills and brilliance, so to say, and they start at a corporate organization, there is no doubt, there is empirical evidence that shows that there is an attrition of women as they climb the corporate ladder. And why, may you ask? It is because the typical woman will miss some time in the workplace and lose some grounds, either because she has to go on maternity leave at some point or something. In some cases, it's probably the spouse or that does not want her to proceed, that does not want her to succeed. So you are doing too much, take it easy. Sometimes it might be the boss, sometimes it might be the male colleagues that will simply not want to give the woman the chance, because she, sometimes also it might be a predatory supervisor or boss. So I was thinking that we can have a situation whereby women can come and share their experiences and also tell us how they navigated that space in order to get to the top of the ladder. But unfortunately, like when I say that I was discouraged, was that nobody shared their experience. I made a presentation. I called to say, yeah, please share your experiences so that those who are listening can know how to go through this. But then nobody actually told us of any story. They just came around generally, say, oh, you know, it requires hard work, you show yourself, you affirm yourself. Nobody said anything about the specifics of what is up. And I believe that maybe it's because of the public space, and that in the course of time, maybe in their private engagement and in bilateral situations, they'll be able to share their experiences. So anyway, the bias against women is inbuilt and it's systemic. We have cultural, religious, and societal constructs that actually militates against women. Question: how did you get around it? How did we come this far? Going forward, we believe that such engagements as we have right now will actually put women in a place whereby they can share. And listening to Prof, I was really very, 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 very happy to hear her share our experiences. So for us in UNFPA, this partnership with the Institute will allow us to work together with the center to continuously play its role within the university family. And moving forward, want to say that we're looking to strengthen the center, because one of the things that we have decided in our new strategic plan in UNFPA Ghana is to take charge of coordination and thought leadership and support organizations and agencies of government as it is to be able to play their coordinating and leadership role in the areas of gender equality and empowerment. So we'll be able to make visible the issues of gender and gender-based violence within the university family by our engagement with the center. We'll be able to build capacity of women to inspire and to take up leadership roles at all levels within the university. We're believing that we'll also, by virtue of this, we'll be able to engage all stakeholders at the university to improve on issues of policy development and implementation. And in doing this also, we believe that we'll be able to continue to introduce innovative in-person and virtual courses on gender and women and girl participation, and provide safe spaces for survivors of gender-based violence so that they can receive succor and comfort. And continuously also, we need to undertake research and generate data and documentations on issues of gender empowerment, gender equality and women empowerment and issues of gender-based violence. And we'll be able to also offer opportunity for students to undertake maybe field trip studies and attachments to be able to gain practical experience, which is why we, UNFPA, as I round up, just to say that we partner with the Domestic Violence Secretariat to provide support to victims of gender-based violence in all the systems that we have, because the issues that we have in terms of gender equality and women empowerment, the issues that we have, the problems that we have is the fact that women don't actually have support. So systemically, we have a system whereby the police is empowered to go after offenders and those who perpetrate gender-based violence. But there is no system in place as an active system that actually looks at the implication of gender-based violence on the victims. So we set up a system, a center in conjunction with Domestic Violence Secretariat to provide support for women who have suffered from gender-based violence, so that we can increasingly, progressively bring them back to the path of life and succor and comfort in the course of time. So I want to thank you very much. I want to thank the center. I want to thank everybody that has taken time out of their time on this particular day to be part of this. And Madam Atobra, we want to thank you very much for giving us this opportunity. And we wish that we hope that this collaboration will continue in the course of time, and we'll be able to achieve at some point in time gender equality and women empowerment in Ghana. I want to thank you very much. Have a good one.
Thank you very much, Rep. Thank you so much. And you are already doing such a great job at UNFPA. And we thank you for your support to various units in the university. And thank you also for the friendship we have built with you, the center and UNFP. And we know that we'll continue to do some work together. As we have learned, collaboration is one of the keys. You can't do it all alone. And so it's always, the synergies we draw from collaboration is great. At this juncture, I would like to say thank you to all of you on the platform. Our analysis show us we've had people joining from various parts of the world. The US, a few from other African countries, and a couple from Europe, and so on and so forth. We are so thankful to you all for joining. It's been a great learning opportunity, even as we celebrate women on this International Women's Day. And we ride on the hashtag break the bias. And all of this is to break the bias and to inspire more women to achieve, more women to accomplish. And all of us at various levels, I believe we feel very fired up now to achieve. So thank you for joining. At this point, I would render thanks. I thank the University of Ghana very much and the Vice Chancellor for honoring this meeting with her opening remarks. We thank University of Ghana management. Of course, we are very thankful to the UNFPA for their support and collaboration. We thank Professor Daniel Ofori, Provost of College of Humanities, who has been here with us. And tomorrow he would get the opportunity to make a few remarks. So we thank our speaker also, Professor Akosua Adomako Ampofo. And to you, our moderator, Ms. Mamiya Mensabon, so thank you. We thank Heritage Developments for helping us with publicity. And we thank University of Ghana Public Affairs also for facilitating publicity work, especially to Lodina, Madame Lodina Agri, for coordinating all the publicity in the various media. As we are here now, Radio Universe has been transmitting live. So the student population has been listening to this event live on radio. And we are going to keep it also on our YouTube, Sejensa YouTube channel, and then we will publish it so many people can get to hear the proceedings of today's event. And we thank our Sejensa team, a very solid team at Sejensa, Dr. Abnatre and our administrator, I can't mention all the names, Akosua and everybody, those coordinating social media and everything, we thank them. Of course, this is a webinar. Technical support is so critical, and we are very grateful for Mr. Eko Arthur and Mr. Frimpong Opuni and the other people who have worked, in the background and, supported us with the technical infrastructure for this event and all of that. And you would see the proceedings in the media, and so we thank also journalists who are partnering with us to put this together. Tomorrow we would have another very engaging session, and we would be honored to have Professor Esther Sechi-Dawson speak to us about defying gender bias and pathways to becoming a flourishing academic. I think whether you are in academia or not, sometimes the principles apply. And so you may be in administration or wherever. Some of these principles are very applicable. So anyone who is aspiring to flourish in leadership or in whatever field, tomorrow is another day for you. And please take note, the time for tomorrow is 1:30 to 2:30 p.m. in the afternoon. And so it's still, within 1 hour, and then we would have Professor Esther Sechi-Dawson, who is Associate Professor of Food Science with the Department of Nutrition and Food Science at the University of Ghana. With you. Thank you all very much, and let's break the bias, and I wish you all a very happy International Women's Day. In fact, let's all show our video and break the bias. So Mr. Frimpong, please give everybody access to show the video, and we would all break the bias as we celebrate International Women's Day. Yeah. So let's break the bias, and yeah. Okay. Bye-bye, and enjoy the rest of the morning. Bye-bye.